Attorneys don't like short sales. We understand that. You don't really get paid for doing all that negotiation, and if all you do is get paid for a real estate closing at the end. We totally understand that. We also know that this is one of two states where a real estate attorney, or two or three, are really present at every closing. In places like Arizona, that would just never happen. An attorney would just never show up. They do for commercial, but not for residential. So it's very unusual for high attorney fees to be included in a short sale to be paid by the bank, or the discount that the bank takes. But real estate agents are in every 50 states dealing with real estate, and more specifically for short sales. So it's very typical for us to get paid enough to go through all the brain damage of going through a short sale. So I think the best way to do this is to team up with someone who knows how to do short sales. Let us do all the heavy lifting, and you do what you do best, and that's going to be real estate closings. So let's take a look at, let's say, a bankruptcy lawyer. As you know, if you process a bankruptcy, a Chapter 13 especially, they may have a house in there, and yes, you can get them away from the debt, but you can't save the damage on their credit. So they may not be able to get a loan for, let's say, 2 to 3 years because of the bankruptcy, but if they let the house go all the way to auction, then they're probably looking at 7 years before they can get a Fannie Mae loan. A little bit less for FHA, but generally about 7 years for another Fannie Mae loan. So that's very damaging to them, and as an attorney, you're thinking, well, I can't really get paid to make that any better, so let's just do a deed in lieu of foreclosure, which is also quite damaging. I understand that, but if you were to go one step further and say, well, let's put you in the hands of someone that can get you an orderly way off of this deed, as opposed to just letting it go to foreclosure or do a deed in lieu, then you can get paid for a closing. And so in this case, in a bankruptcy where you just do a deed in lieu, or you tell them just to let it go and let it go all the way to an auction, you don't get paid for a closing. You get paid for the bankruptcy, but not for a closing. So in this case, you let us do all the work, we wrap it up with a bow, hand it to you and say, we're ready to close. Here's the signed short sale approval. Now you please handle the closing. You'd be on the back of the HUD-1 as the seller's attorney and paid by the bank and the discount that they give. So that's one way, and where most attorneys should be able to figure out a way to get some billable hours in the closing here. Now, other attorneys, let's say if they're in divorce, they're dealing with divorce, that's a pretty easy move into short sales. And again, anyone that does divorce probably has, either they do or someone in their firm can also handle the closing. So again, another way to not just say, just hand the keys back, but let's have an orderly movement off of this deed by doing a short sale. Now, estate attorneys. This is a perfect example of something that we're doing right now. An estate is not very well funded. There's really no money. They need to get some infusion of cash into this estate. The way that we're doing that is, it's obviously a vacant property now. If they team up with not only us doing the short sale, but also us doing property management, we can rent that property out through the very long period that it's going to be going from the start of the estate until the final, whether it's a short sale or an auction, whichever way it goes. So in other words, there could be money coming into this property that otherwise would just sit vacant and rotting away, for the average being 968 days from delinquency to an auction, in which that property is completely not only unproductive, but also going downhill in value at the same time. So the bank would prefer to have someone living in there, obviously in a state that's not a player, or a divorce that may not be a player, but second best is put some renters in there. Let's get some power on it, let's get some maintenance done, let's make sure that the town doesn't have to come over and mow it. Otherwise, the bank has to come over and put their locks on it and do their own property maintenance. The way we set this up, with my property management handling it, the money goes to the sellers, or in the case of an estate, could go to an estate attorney or to the executor to add some cash into the estate so they can pay other bills. Also, if you're an attorney that deals with foreclosure defense, a lot of people who are in a short sale situation would love to be able to defend a foreclosure if there's something wrong with the way that the foreclosure is run, but they don't have any money to pay you. So one way to do that is, if it is a vacant property, to go ahead and just rent the property out, have a property management company do it, and then have that money go to you to help pay for that foreclosure defense or closing or a bankruptcy in this case. So if someone comes to you and they say, well, I'd love to file a Chapter 13. We've got a vacant property, or let's say we've got divorce, one of us needs to file a Chapter 13, but we can't afford to do that. But one way to do that is to rent the property out and then have those funds go towards the bankruptcy attorney so that they can go ahead and file. So I think you can see that as long as my company does what we're supposed to do, and you do one step further of not just saying, hey, give it back to the bank, but put it in the hands of someone that knows how to do it, and then you can get billable hours, whether it's through the estate or maybe a bankruptcy filing that you would normally have to turn someone down for, or a foreclosure defense, or at an absolute minimum, a closing. If you have any questions, give me a call, 450-7325, or info@helpwiththebank.com.